definitely want to know how you're feeling right now. So feel free to pop that into the chat box and let us know how you're feeling right now. I'm looking at the chat right here. People are saying sleepy. I'm good. Excited, calmish. We apologize for the technical glitch, but I think happy, satisfied, that's good. Sleepy too, hopeful as well. I'm sleepy too. Yes, hungry, tired, a lot of them coming in. Okay, curious, healthy, excellent. Love those answers, eager to learn. So let's get right in. Let's talk about conscious eating. So conscious eating has a lot to do with how we actually perceive our food. So this image right here is obviously the plate that you see. So we have our vegetables and fruits on one side of the plate, and then we have our proteins and our carbohydrates. So all food groups are equally important for all of us, and they should be laced with healthy fats. And while these are not set in stone because each one of us are unique, it definitely changes with how our lifestyle is and how we are. So I think it's important for us to also understand that from that perspective, where healthy eating is so much more than the foods we eat. So especially in these times where we've moved to a virtual semester, we're all taking classes online, we're meeting our friends online, we're catching up with them. So there is definitely the whole climate of screen fatigue that we feel. And with that, what happens sometimes is we probably go down the trajectory of unconscious eating, which may lead to guilt, which then most often than not leads to a lack of self-love. So what does unconscious eating mean? Just as an example, it means sometimes if there's a cookie lying on the kitchen counter, you eat that cookie, let's say at 12 p.m. And then you forget about that. At 9 p.m. when you remember that you ate that cookie because you were pacing up and down on a phone call and you don't realize that you've actually eaten that cookie, but then at 9 o'clock when you remember that you ate the cookie, you feel guilty about that and think, why did I do that? What possessed me to actually eat that cookie? And then I forgot about it. And then you start feeling guilty. Now, if you don't feel guilty, that's the best kind of path we want to take, because that actually leads to a lack of self-love if you are guilty. But most often than not, in these times, we may face that kind of a contention. So what do we do in that scenario? There's definitely the power in yourself to do that, where you can comprehend the contention. So what that means is the next time you are faced with that kind of a scenario where you are battling between, I need this donut, I don't want this donut, should I be eating the donut? Or I forgot that I ate that donut, why did I do that to myself? It's always best to pause and ask yourself, which emotion are you really feeding into? So if it is anger, if it's sadness, if it's confusion, if it's actually just because you're happy, that might be a good way to ascertain what are you feeling and how are you actually linking what you're eating right now with your emotions. So you're really linking the present moment in really showing up for yourself with that. If you're feeling happy and you're eating that donut, that's great. But if you are feeling sad, then think about the root cause of why you're feeling sad. And will this food item really help you with that? What and if? And if it does, because it's a comfort level for you, go for it. But if it doesn't, and you feel like you're just eating to fill a void, that might be something for you to look forward to actually break that, that kind of a association by just, practicing that kind of mindfulness. So the best thing to do is pause. And of course, this is easier said than done, but it bodes well for us to, think about these things each time. So it may not happen the first time, it may not happen the second time, but with practice, it definitely starts happening over time. So it's important just to be aware of that. I'm still admitting people in. I'm happy. to see people show up. Now the next one, another scenario is basically a nagging thought. So in the few slides, if you've seen, there's the whole power in yourself, and we definitely have that power in us to possibly move from a nagging thought to shift to your happy place. So really finding the joy. Think about a happy moment in your life that actually made you happy and move to that. And why I say that is because think about, life being just like, you have the remote control. It's something that you're watching on TV. It's like the channels you're watching on TV, and you have the remote control in your hand. So you're easily able to switch from that emotion to a happier one. And it's what in the scientific community is referred to as the dialectical calm, which means in adversity, it is important to focus on things you're able to control. So this might create a certain kind of disconnect that happens if you are practicing unconscious eating. So just shifting the nagging thought and finding a happy place for yourself can cause that kind of a disconnect to help you not go down that trajectory of guilt and a lack of self-love. Another very helpful thing to actually use when you are feeling that nagging thought and you do want to shift that thought and cause that disconnect with the unconscious eating would be to check in on others, your loved ones or your friends or other people, just because really employing that technique of altruism helps us also create that disconnect. It helps build your resilience by uplifting your well-being because you feel like you've done something good, you're checking in on someone else, it feels good for you, and you are consciously causing a disconnect with that. So that's another scenario. So we're giving you tangible scenarios here where you could possibly use if you have been facing these things in these times. The next one is boredom, and this might be very much related to even today's conditions or today's climate, where we are facing screen fatigue, where we are facing quarantine fatigue, where we are even facing compassion fatigue. So what happens with that? There's a similar feeling of boredom that sets in, and with that, the boredom that sets in is with monotony that happens over time. So with that, when there's nothing to do, obviously food is comforting because food is part of a social experience for us. It's related to our nostalgias, it's related to our experiences, it's related to our exposures. So with that boredom, we feel like finding comfort in food, which again is not the worst thing to do, but when it leads to unconscious eating, which then leads to guilt and a lack of self-love, a better way to go about that is really find something that's creative for yourself and keep yourself and maintain that accountability for yourself. So one of the ways to do things of those sorts would be to really find something that you can shift or unplug from the screen or get away from the normal things that you're doing right now and find other things that could possibly interest you, like taking up or a cooking skill, a skill like cooking, basically for your personal development. So cooking seems to be therapeutic. It helps you engage in understanding what's going into your snack or your meals and actually enjoying that. So that might be something to do, to read, to maybe take a course, compartmentalizing your screen time to take a course that actually adds to your kind of skill set. And we have a couple of things that are there on campus for us to do, like the Zoom Fit classes. While that is part of a screen, that would involve a screen, it still helps you move and build resilience with that. So that's something you can definitely do for undergrads. You have SIG groups, student interest groups that you can definitely join and share those like-minded experiences. Now, the next one is obviously mindfulness. Now, bear in mind, mindfulness is just like a muscle. It gets better with use. So what I mean by mindfulness here is oftentimes we're never in the moment to really show up for ourselves and think about the taste, the texture, the flavor, or the kind of emotion it brings in you when you're eating a certain food item. So it's important for us to realize that when we are eating, and we're all part of the hashtag Netflix and chill phenomenon, where we are kind of addicted to technology. So a lot of us don't like to eat without looking at something or, really facing technology in that moment. But what we could do is the first 5 minutes when we start to sit down to eat, maybe just looking down at our plate or into our bowls and actually seeing what's there. How does it make me feel? When I taste the first bite, what's the taste? What's the texture? What's the flavor? What is it making me feel in that moment? So that could be the way you flex your mindfulness muscle. So in that scenario, what happens is you're able to fully commit to a food item just for 5 minutes, and every one of us have 5 minutes to do that. And think about how it actually affects your thoughtful responses in the future. So it creates a way for you to not crave that certain kind of food in the future. And if you feel like you're craving it too often, that might be this might be a great technique to actually employ for yourself. So I'm going to introduce hashtag Netflix and heal rather than Netflix and chill. So eat that churro, eat that donut, eat that marshmallow, but really savor that moment for yourself. And that helps create, again, thoughtful responses as opposed to autopilot reactions that form, and helps create a trajectory of conscious eating. So you're really showing up for yourself in the moment there. Now, this is something that is an exercise that is called food mapping, which really tries to link your conscious mind with your subconscious mind. So again, really engaging thoughtful responses as opposed to autopilot reactions that we're used to. So think about your go-to food, think about the emotion it brings in you, think about the appeasement it brings. Is it rewarding? Is it punishing? And has it become Pavlovian? And by that, I mean, has it become conditioned? Is it something that you're doing over and over again without realizing? So just to give you an example, I'm going to take the example of the donut, and this is my example. So if you can tell, I love donuts. But this is an exercise I had actually done for myself, where I was able to then ascertain a better eating pattern from this. So let's take the donut. So so when I was young, this started with the time when I was in school. So always think about, when was your first experience with your go-to food? So I started my love affair with donuts when I was in school. So one fine day I came home really sad, and my mom was there, and she asked me, Remy, what's wrong? And I said, I don't want to talk about it. She said, you know what? Sit down on the couch, and there was this box of donuts on the coffee table, and she said, grab a donut and talk to me. And at that point of time, after talking it out, I felt really comforted. So I started associating the whole, sadness with donuts. So whenever I needed to be comforted, I started to eat the donut. So the donut literally started in a scenario when I was sad. It brought me the appeasement of being comforted. It picked me up. Over time, it started to become rewarding. So anytime I felt like I was sad, I would go for the donut. And then over time, it also started becoming punishing, because anytime I felt at fault, anytime I felt that I was guilty about something, I thought I need that pick me up. So I would go back to the donut. And that started to happen when I have a bad day at work. So over time, that became conditioned without me even realizing. Anytime there was a bad scenario that came through, I would always, going back to the principle of nagging thought, I was not able to dissociate from there. So it just became a vicious cycle of that. It became Pavlovian for me, until I was able to do this exercise and really realize that when I was sad, it was not really the donut that picked me up at that point of time. It was the conversation with mom, which was that social experience that was there that picked me up. So I was able to understand in those moments that I probably love the donut because I loved the social experience of sharing my emotions with mom. So this is just an example, but for you to actually think about how, food affects our lives in so many different ways. It's not just, it's more of an experience for us. This is another example. The first example was something that I was giving you about myself, which was about something that led to unconscious eating. I'm going to give you the second example, which is my husband's example. He did not like this experiment on him, but I'm still giving it. We're a product of this region. I'm born and raised here in Dubai. So we often, when we were young, we had this whole 2-for-1 by, these pizza chains. So when he was a teenager, obviously during his adolescence, there was this time where he felt like nothing's going in my favor. I'm out of control. Nothing's, life sucks, basically. So he saw this ad on the billboard with 2-for-1 pizza. It was affordable at that time. So he was able to get that with his pocket money. And at that time, when he felt that lack of control, because he could buy that with his pocket money, he felt that sense of belonging, that I'm able to accomplish that. And that started to become basically rewarding for himself. And we still have pizza weekends because of this. Why? Because when you do a whole week of hard work, we want to sit down, chill, relax, and unwind during the weekend. So that's a way for him to reclaim control. So while this did not lead to an unconscious eating pattern, it definitely helped us ascertain why is pizza his favorite food, right? So it's something for us to really link those social experiences for ourselves. So I would still put this in front. Feel free to, note down, journal this. It helps you really understand how it's shaping your food preferences, how it's shaping your eating patterns. And if you are facing unconscious eating in the moment, this is a great way to really cause that disconnect and practice conscious eating. Why? Because it really melts the subconscious mind, which is also referred to as the shadow ego. It lurks in the shadow. Now, picture-wise, I've put that as a devil, but it's not always the fictitious shoulder devil that's there. There are positive elements about that, but it's really about, again, not succumbing to autopilot reactions and really thinking about thoughtful responses and engaging with your conscious ego, which is your prefrontal cortex or your brain, which makes those conscious decisions, which makes goal setting, which makes those logical reasoning sequences. So thinking about the food mapping exercise engages both of these elements. Now, another few things that I'll cover today would be reflecting upon cravings. So a lot of times, and especially in these times, we may have a lot of cravings, and I'm just going to give you a generalized feel, and this is in no way saying that every one of us feel the same way, but it's very, it's something for us to reflect upon. So for example, if you feel like in the recent past, you've been feeling the craving for spicy food, it might be because you feel like your life's on hold and you're looking to crank up your life or spice up your life. So that might be a scenario that's here. Not to say that if you enjoy spicy food, you feel like your life is forever on hold, but it's something to think about if you've been craving this, in the recent past, or you may just enjoy spicy food, but really reflect upon that. The other one is chocolate. So chocolate has this whole social experience or social conditioning. When there's a celebration, there's chocolate. When there's a happy moment, there's chocolate. So sometimes what happens is because of that social conditioning and also because of the texture and the flavor, it really lets you ease into, a melancholy. If you're feeling stressed, if you feel the need to be comforted, it can be very rewarding to that feeling. So sometimes when we crave chocolate, it might be because of, these kinds of feelings. Sometimes what happens is we like to have greasy food, even though we know it's greasy, even though we think it might be, we might associate greasy with gross, in that fashion, while it might not always be gross, but we still associate that in our brain. We might be thinking of a time where we are at fault or we feel it's a gloomy day and you need to be comforted. So you might be using that as a punishing mechanism for yourself. I don't deserve this because, I feel at fault. Let me go and indulge in a greasy burger. So that might be a feeling that's there. The other one is anger. So sometimes what happens is we have mini push down aggression. So a kind of conversation you had with your roommate where you weren't able to, where it was not really acceptable to you what was said to you, but you couldn't say anything in the moment, and that was a push down aggression. So the only way to reclaim that would be sometimes we use food as a comfort mechanism. And if you feel that kind of push down aggression, it might be anger, because think about it. Indulging in something that's crispy can really help, satisfy yourself. So opening up a packet of crisps, crunching down on those chips can be something that relieves your anger. And we sometimes do that unconsciously. And this is just to help you reflect on that if you have felt this in the recent past. So now I want to talk about conscious eating. I think we have been having a technical glitch, right, Wayne?
Yeah. So I wonder why those answers are there.
The answers are here.
But answer that question first. That was the first one that showed up.
That's right. But we have this question here, and you can definitely put it in the chat box right here. So what is conscious eating? Is it our diet is only what we eat? Is that what it is? Conscious eating is also about simply showing up for yourself in the moment. Mindfulness is also about linking the past to the present for more thoughtful responses. Do you strongly disagree or do you strongly agree? So feel free to put those answers in, whether you strongly disagree with these statements or you strongly agree with these statements in the chat box. I see someone's written those late night Pringle eatings finally has an explanation. Yes, it does. Life is not complete without chocolate. That is true. Wayne has his comments. Yes, I haven't had a bad day in NYU80. That's true. Strongly disagree, strongly agree, and agree. Wow, that's good. Keep them coming, people. You can definitely put your answers in. So Sarah has a question here. What about people with eating disorders? I assume the meaning behind eating food would be different. Yes, definitely. And with all honesty, people with eating disorders like myself, and this is probably why I went into nutrition, is because we cope with it, but there's definitely methods that you can do. Feel free to contact our health center. Please book an appointment. It could really be so helpful for yourself. Even the wellness exchange, please stay in touch with that. It can really be life-changing also in terms of how you're able to, kind of overcome those things and really secure your nutrition for yourself and your wellness. Yes, I see a lot of answers there. What kind of role does stress eating play in our diet? That's all that we discussed recently and on all the slides. That's what stress eating does. So I'm gonna move on because I want to show you this. First of all, our diet is not only what we eat. It truly is a lot of other things. Let me show you that. It's not what we eat, it is what we watch, what we listen to, what we read, the people we surround ourselves with, because all of these have great influences on how what our diet actually means to us. So let's be always mindful about the things we put into our bodies emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So just to give you a side note here, obviously the content we consume nowadays is so much more in our faces than it was before, just because of the scenarios that we're in, the current climate we're in. So a lot of times we see a lot of information that's pushed out, but really ask yourself, how is that actually influencing your decisions? So make more thoughtful responses with that. And with that, we'll move to sleep management, to our sleep guru here, Wayne Young.
I am, well, I won't even talk about pizza. Pizza to me is one of those rare meals, though. I am going to talk about pizza, evidently. Thank you, Remy, for talking about food, one of my favorite subjects. Pizza are meals where you can sit down with that, and if it's takeaway or whatever, and people will literally reach into your dish and just take some of your food. But that's just a great way of sharing food with people. They will just reach in and take a slice of pizza, and you offer it to them, and it's kind of a great way to socialize. Sleep management. I am very good at sleeping. I will tell you that much. My adult daughters will tell you that I could sleep anywhere, anytime. I could sleep on a sharp pointed fence. So I'm very good at it, but I also, I'm really conscious of my sleeping and when I do sleep. And so Remy's got a slide up here, when falling asleep feels easiest. And this is kind of something to talk about. In school, I can only imagine if you're on a Zoom call after eating lunch, or you're on a Zoom class after eating lunch, whether you can stay awake or not. That is tough to do because your stomach is using up your blood supply to process food. It takes it away from your brain. You start falling asleep. At work in a meeting, yep, I can fall asleep in a meeting. I have that skill that I can do that. It's very tough to stay awake sometime. In bed 10 minutes before the alarm goes off. You know, I'm in a different time zone right now. I traveled, so I'm working remotely from kind of far away, but we've all done that before. You have trouble sleeping all night, then all of a sudden you finally fall into a deep sleep and the alarm goes off 10 minutes later and you're thinking, oh, I got ripped off here. And The worst thing is when you're in bed and you're trying to fall asleep, when you really need to fall asleep and you just can't because you have too much going on in your head in many cases. So,
just side note here, Wayne, a lot of people agreeing with this chart right here in the
yep.
chat.
And that is kind of what life is like. And so one thing I do, and we're going to get into time management later. I don't necessarily go to the sleep at the same time every night, but it's probably within 30 minutes to an hour at most. I look at what my next day is bringing me, and I know I need to be asleep for 7 hours. My body needs about 7 hours. So here is a great question for you. Now let's see if our technology will work.
Yeah, or feel free to even put in your answers in the chat box. So if you sleep less than 5 hours, if you get anywhere between 5 to 7 hours, or you get anywhere between 7 to 9 hours. Thank you, Harjinder. Thank you for the code, putting in the code again. Thank you.
And I'm getting the same message. This question is not open for voting right now. I don't.
Yeah, that's a technological glitch, but
yeah.
We have a lot of answers coming in the chat box that's here. 5 to 7.
So as you're putting those answers in there, I will tell you I try and sleep for 7 hours a night. If it's the rare day when I'm not going to get that, then I understand that. I'm also good at napping. A 10 or 15 or 20-minute nap is a great thing. And something I should have said at the start of this, 2 to 3 if he's lucky. Dan, need to be sleeping more than that. And I'm sure he is.
Oh, Dan, yeah, Dan has, yeah. I
Sleep is the most important thing you can do for your wellness. Okay, and I'll repeat that for you. Sleep is the most important thing you can do for your wellness. When you're sleeping, your body is repairing, your body is maybe growing, your body is resting. It is the most important thing you can do because then you're able to function the rest of the day. And you're able to learn better, you're able to perform better mentally and physically, but sleep is the most important thing you can do. And I just want you to understand that.
We have a quote here, sleep is not a choice, that someone sent in the chat box here.
Sleep is not a choice, your body needs sleep. Remy, on the next slide, are we showing required sleep based on ages?
That's true. So here's your
healthy sleep duration. You can see babies require 12 to 16 hours. And I want you to think about this from a baby perspective. Babies are obviously developing, they're growing, they're learning things, they're learning how to speak, they're learning how to walk, and young babies are learning how to crawl. Their body needs a lot of time to repair and to, Tina says, I already missed that memo, about the 12 to 16 hours. Here's something to think about babies. A baby's head is 25% of its body weight. That's why their heads are tough to hold up. Imagine if your head was 25% of your body weight. You would need more sleep too, just to be able to haul that big blob on top of your shoulders around. But as we get older, we require less sleep. Our bodies require less sleep. But you can see how this goes on. And I am over 18 years old. I know that shocks many of you. So 7+ hours, 7 to 8 hours, maybe 9 hours if you're overtired. But sleep is just important. And I know as university, as college students, that many of you are going on 5 or 6 hours of sleep. And so we're going to talk in a little while about time management, how to control that. I think we require less sleep when we age because our body isn't doing as much physically and maybe mentally. And then also us older people are smart about it. And if we feel like we need a nap, we take a nap. And it works out. So I am a prolific napper on the weekends. After a long workout, you would find me on my couch for an hour or two, and I can just take a nap in the middle of the day. Tina does not have that opportunity because she has 2 small children. She would love to have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So what happens when you sleep? You can see in the blue circles some of the things that go on. From my perspective, as I would like to consider myself an athlete, my muscles repair and recover. My metabolism is regulated. Maintain better health, better mental and physical health. So that's why I say to you, sleep is the most important thing you can do for your health and wellness.
And here are 10 better ways for us to actually employ better sleep.
Maintain a consistent daily schedule. Not good at night. You should reduce it overall. I personally do not eat within 3 hours of going to bed. That's just a little rule with me. I don't eat, if I'm going to bed at 10 o'clock that night, I don't eat anything after 7 p.m. But I also don't go to bed on an empty stomach. Regular exercise will tire your body out, and that will help you sleep more deeply and more soundly. It's interesting, it's now in a lot of places, so I have a Garmin watch on that tracks my sleep cycle. I don't know how it does it. It's technology, I'm not good with that. Tracks my sleep cycle, and I have found that my deep sleep takes place right away. The first thing that happens is I go into a deep sleep state, I come out of that, and then go through all the cycles during the night into REM sleep and light sleep. But I try and engage in regular physical exercise. Beverages, try not to drink too much. The same for me. It's back to the 3 hour thing. I try not to drink anything within 3 hours of going to bed. My bedroom, the only thing that goes on in my bedroom is sleeping. It's dark and it's quiet, and that's incredibly important. Dark and quiet, usually you want your temperature in your room where you're sleeping to be cooler than a normal temperature. You're generating heat anyway when you're sleeping. I know you don't have the opportunity, many of you don't have the opportunity to invest in comfortable bedding, but do what you can. If you can get out and buy something that will enhance your sleep area, go do that. And go to sleep and wake up using your internal alarm clock. That would be a wonderful thing if we could all do that. If you could just go to sleep and then wake up before the alarm clock goes off, because then you're not being interrupted. Tough to do at your age, tough to do at my age, but I'm still actually, when that happens, I'm always pretty happy about that. If I wake up maybe 5 or 10 minutes before the alarm, I'm thinking, wow, that was a successful night. That's great. I got all the sleep I needed and I'm ready to go. Time management. I am also known for having routines and having things on a schedule, and I prefer things on a schedule. My schedule includes, once I put something in my calendar, and I'm suggesting you do this, once I put something in my calendar, then I work around it. So in my life, the most important thing I do is work, just because that's where I am in life. And so I know I'm working every day from 9 to 5, some days it's longer, but I know what's going on during that work day. I have, some people know, I have 3 adult daughters. I Skype with each of them for 30 minutes every week, and it's on a schedule. I insisted to be on a schedule with them. So on Sunday nights, I'm Skyping with Courtney at 8:30. On Monday nights, I'm Skyping with Rachel at 9 p.m. And on Friday mornings, I'm Skyping with Sarah at 7 a.m. Now, they don't like the fact that I limit it to half an hour, but that's what I put on my schedule, and that's what I kind of limit them to, is a half an hour of my time. Sometimes the conversation gets rambling and they look for extra time, and then I will dock them the next week in some cases. But time management is incredibly important. Having a routine, and I'm not saying you need to be set in a routine every day, every week, but having a routine is very helpful. You know what's coming up. You know, the first thing you should probably put on your calendar is sleep. If you put that on your calendar, put in sleep, and then you work around that, because that is the most important thing you do. Secret sauce for time management, and here it comes. Create a calendar. You all have phones, you all have Google, you all have laptops, you have iPads or whatever, tablets. Create a calendar and see what your life looks like. There are staff members I know that will, if they want to ensure they're going to have a good lunch break, they just put that in their calendar. They can see lunch from 12:30 to 1:30, and all anybody else can see when they're trying to schedule a meeting with them is busy. And so you're not going to schedule a meeting with somebody that's busy, but people are making sure they make that time for themselves. So put it in a calendar, have it in some fixed spot. Schedule the fixed events. Like I said, I have, in my case, I schedule my daughter's Skype calls. I know that sounds cold and everything, but that's the way it works best for me, and they've found that it works best for them. Schedule the fixed events, put them in there. Things you know you're going to do every week, put them in your calendar and leave them there, and then you start working around those things, all the other things you want to do. If you want to schedule time with your friends, you know what? Schedule time with your friends. And it's still good time. It's just you know when it's going to happen. And then when you have time for other things, because if you don't necessarily schedule it, it may not happen. And that's a bad thing when that doesn't happen. You need to have that socialization. Find the best time for each activity or task. You know, if you know you study well from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. at night, put it on your calendar, and that's your study time. And if you want to break it down by subject, break it down by subject. And so it'll keep you more focused. To start of the semester, each professor will provide you with a syllabus. Review that and look at assignments and start planning your calendar out.
So
Focusing
now
on, oh, go ahead, Remy. I'm sorry, that's you.
No, I think it's important to also understand that, you know, from your time management, a great segue to do is to really think about your vision board and think about your external concerns and what are your internal concerns. So map that out and think about what's urgent, what's not urgent, what can you be doing right now and what can you be doing later. And this is so important as midterms come right now, where you can prioritize your time, and that's really how you can focus on things you can control, which are realistic, tangible goals. So quite simply, what that means is dividing what's important, what's not important, what's urgent, and what's not urgent. If it's urgent, you want to do it right away. If it's urgent but not important, you want to delegate or reschedule. If it's not urgent but important, you want to do it soon, or you just want to avoid and ignore for the time being. So it's important for us to think about this, because time management can really help build resilience, because you are focusing on the things you can control. So just a few simple, we just want to know from you, what does priority mean to you? So put that into the chat box there. One word that you think describes priority for yourself. And we'll give you 1 minute for that. Describe priority in one word. Let's see our answers coming in the chat box. So I see a few questions here. How do you gauge how much food is in your stomach? I think it depends on how you feel full and how satisfied you feel. So really think about, you know, engaging in practicing good sleep hygiene really entails not going to sleep on an empty stomach and not going to sleep on a full stomach. So anywhere between that, you're satisfied and feel like you're good. Necessity, closeness to deadline, non-negotiable, important. I love these answers.
Good answer, Bilal. That's what I was going to go with, priority. But I thought, well, it's the same word. Maybe I can't use that. But somebody.
That's lovely. Thank you for your answers. That's lovely, guys. Thank you so much for your answers. We're going to just talk about a few good reminders as we end this conversation. So really unlearning and relearning how food is more than just an experience. I mean, food is more than just what we eat. It's really an experience. Hashtag nourishment. So you want to think of food as something that transcends even beyond the physical and the physiological phenomenon, and actually transcends to how it actually makes you feel satisfied mentally. And those were the great answers you gave us when we were talking about conscious eating. Understanding why sleep is key, as Wayne had mentioned, for your mental, physical, social, and financial well-being, right, Wayne? There's a lot of things that can come with really understanding how sleep can contribute towards these aspects, because you are more focused, you are more informed. When you sleep better, you function better. And that's a great segue into understanding how recognizing why prioritizing your goals builds resilience. So this is why we had showed you that square, the Rota-Covey square, which really helps you focus on things you can control. And since midterms are up, it really can be very useful for you to focus on these tangible, achievable, realistic goals. And which are in your control. Setting time aside for yourself to really celebrate you, hashtag self-care, because it's so important to even fix that on your calendar, as Wayne mentioned. Set some time aside for yourself to be gentle with yourself and actually enjoy that, because when you do that, you increase your productivity. And that's the best way to actually celebrate you, finding your purpose and unleashing your authenticity. With that, we want to say, be gentle with yourselves. These are trying times, but we will get we will get with it together. We will actually overcome this. But feel free to message us on our alias. Should you have any questions, you can actually email us. We have our Facebook group. It is a closed Facebook group, but it's NYU80 Wellness. Feel free to subscribe to that, and even our Instagram, which is nyu80.wellness. So that's the difference. Both the names are same between Facebook and Instagram, but there's a dot there for Instagram.